lungs. So we're inhaling air. That air goes through a structure that has a lot of cartilaginous rings in it. What is that structure called? Trachea, yeah. And the trachea then branches off into two branches. What are those branches called? Yeah, bronchi. And the bronchi will further bifurcate into a whole bunch of little branches. What are those little branches called? Bronchioles. Bronchioles. Yeah, perfect. And then the bronchioles terminate in what? Alveoli, yeah. And so if you zoom in with a microscope and take a look at the alveoli, you'll notice that they're actually in little grape-like clusters, right? Tiny little circles of air. So why are they in these grape-like clusters instead of one giant sac?
Increases surface area for oxygen exchange.
Yeah, so gas exchange is super important, so you want to increase surface area to volume ratio. Yes, absolutely. So surface area to volume ratio is super important. Okay, and then after your alveoli, at the alveoli, what happens is your alveoli are super thin sacs. They're made up of squamous epithelium, which makes gas exchange really easy. So oxygen moves into the alveoli from your blood, and CO2 moves from your blood into your lungs so that you can breathe it back out. And oxygen moves from the blood into your body, okay? So specifically, that oxygenated blood from your lungs goes back to your heart where it gets pumped and circulated across the rest of your body. So what is this blood vessel called that takes oxygenated blood from your lungs back to your heart? Pulmonary vein, exactly. Yeah, so this is part of the pulmonary circulatory circuit. Pulmonary circulation, it's low pressure, and it's the pulmonary vein because it's going back to the heart, right? It's the one exception where vein is carrying oxygenated blood. That's great. Okay, glad you didn't all forget that. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the kidney, right? So the kidney has three main layers that you'll get a chance to see over in the organ demos over there. So the very outer layer is called the what? What is the very outer layer called? The renal cortex, beautiful. And then what's the middle layer called? Renal medulla. And the renal medulla is made up of individual units. They kind of look like triangles, and they're the renal pyramids, okay? And I put little dots at the tip of the renal pyramids because those are the renal papillae, and it's where all the collecting ducts from the nephrons converge, and that's where urine exits into the minor and major calyces of your kidney. So what is the innermost section of your kidney called? Team 6? The renal pelvis, right? So it's like a watershed, right? So the urine starts off in sort of small tributaries, but then converges in the renal pelvis where it's got this big gush and it goes down your ureter to the bladder where it holds urine. All right, so what I want to do now is to zoom in on one of these functional units of the kidney. So one functional unit of the kidney is called a nephron, and this is a very simplified nephron, right? We've got our capsule up here, and then we've got a really straight duct that goes all the way down. This is going to be our collecting duct, but if you've taken other classes, you'll know that there's proximal and distal tubules, and it's actually pretty complicated. But what I want to mention is, okay, you have a blood supply going into your kidney, and this blood supply has two main structures that I want to talk about. One is the afferent arteriole, and one is the efferent arteriole. And in the efferent arteriole, that's where blood exits this glomerulus. Okay? So the afferent arteriole is actually bigger in diameter than the efferent arteriole. So I'm not going to talk about why this is right now, but I do want you to be thinking about it and thinking about this equation. Flow is equal to force times the radius to a power of 4, and it's an equation that has popped up before, right? We saw it when we did the cardio lab, right? What happens when you have arteriosclerosis, for instance. So we will return to this, but what happens at this juncture is filtration happens. Usually very small molecules are filtered, like sodium, glucose, hydrogen ions. That's interesting. So try to think about when we were talking about pH and when we were talking about pH homeostasis. Okay? And do you think things like proteins and blood should get through your urine? usually a bad thing, right? So those are really big molecules. Proteins have tons of amino acids. They should not get through under normal circumstances. Okay, great. Okay, the other thing I want to mention is, in a kidney or in a nephron, what happens is your body can actually generate a hypertonic or hyperosmotic environment with a ton of salt or solute right outside the nephron. And what this means is that the water inside the nephron will want to move outside. That's how your body reabsorbs water, right? That's how you reabsorb water, maintain blood pressure. So the only way water can do this, the only way water can move out, is in the presence of antidiuretic hormone, which is a hormone produced in your pituitary gland in your brain. So let's think about coffee and alcohol. Coffee has caffeine and alcohol is alcohol. What class of beverages would you call this? Diuretics. Does that sound familiar to everyone? Yes. So coffee and alcohol are diuretics, and they do the opposite effect of antidiuretic hormone. What they'll do is they'll knock out antidiuretic hormone, and that means that water can no longer move out of its collecting duct. It just moves right through you, slides right through you, and hits the toilet, okay? So will that increase or decrease urine production?
Increase.
Increase, yeah, absolutely. So if you drink a lot of coffee, drink a lot of alcohol, make sure you're staying hydrated because everything will just run right through you, okay? All right, so that's our beginning of class summary. So think about some of these green parts that say review on them because we'll be returning to them at the end of class. And today, we will be doing respiration and urinalysis. So our skills and our goals are to test and interpret urinalysis tests. So you get to test your own urine. If you're not super comfortable with that, we have some patient urine for you to test. That's okay too. Please be able to relate specific gravity, that's a new concept, to tonicity and hydration. And you'll be able to use something called a spirometer and a peak flow meter to test your lung function. Notice that in your blue or red cups, there are some cardboard tubes. Once you take a tube, it is yours. If it falls on the ground, it is yours, okay? So please don't cross-contaminate. Once it comes out of the cup, hang on to it. Once you're done, you can put it in the recycling, okay? So in terms of safety, if you are wanting to participate in the urinalysis experiment, please make sure to have your PF spray bleach on your table and then grab some paper towels to bleach up when they're done. You'll be peeing in a pee cup, so what you'll want to do is fill it up about halfway, but please do not abandon your pee cup anywhere. Don't just leave it in the bathroom. Don't leave it for the custodial staff to pick up. Don't leave it for someone to trip over, okay? It stays with you. Once you've peed in it, it goes back into your safety bubble, okay? Watch out also for stair runners during respiration tests. So one of the tests that we'll be doing, hopefully you've taken a look at this in the lab manual, involves running up and down the stairs to test respiration. If you are doing the pee experiment, please be careful not to have any collisions with people who are running up and down the stairs. It will be kind of gross, okay? So just be cognizant of that. All right, so finally we have that today, so please read over all of the text and any discussion questions. The text is not super long, so please do actually read over that. It will become important. And then at the very end of class, after you've done your IFAT, go ahead, congregate over there because Jessica will be doing an awesome lung inflation exercise. You'll get to see the lungs inflate. It'll be great. Okay. All right, any questions so far?